The man is a malignant narcissist, all right? That's a dangerous combination to have a narcissist like that. It's not a proud day for this country. How could it be a proud day when a man who was not elected by the people becomes president of the United States? How does...
Gil Cates was the producer of the show. I spoke to him a few years later. I said, tell me what really happened that night. He said, there just wasn't any way we could let you go on.
Donald Trump is losing it on Friday afternoon. He was forced to acknowledge the MeidasTouch reporting, where we exposed that there were 1 million records at least that are missing from the Southern District of New York regarding the Epstein files that had not been turned over to the DOJ. It's my belief that the Southern District of New York had been trying to turn it over to the Department of Justice, but I believe the Department of Justice has been covering it up, since we are aware that the DOJ and the Southern District of New York knew about these documents, these million-plus records that the MeidasTouch network identified.
The relationship between filmmaker Michael Moore and Donald Trump has reached a boiling point as newly released Epstein files expose uncomfortable truths about the president's past. Revelations that directly contradict Trump's own public statements and highlight the very connections Moore has spent years warning America about. While Trump tries to dismiss the Epstein scandal as a political distraction, the documents tell a different story.
They see that the elites who ruined their lives hate Trump. Corporate America hates Trump. Wall Street hates Trump. The career politicians hate Trump. The media hates Trump after they loved him and created him, and now hate him. Thank you, media. The enemy of my enemy.
It's not a proud day for this country. How could it be a proud day when a man who was not elected by the people becomes president of the United States? How does that happen? Listen, the man is a malignant narcissist, all right? That's a dangerous combination to have a narcissist like that who's elected to public office, because he's only thinking about himself. He's only thinking, how does this affect me?
Back in 2020. So here's what Donald Trump just posted. And again, the MeidasTouch network was the first to break this story. A reminder to hit subscribe here. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers. You see the power of independent media. And so you can also help us out by going to our Substack, MeidasPlus.com. You see the stories we're breaking while corporate news bends the knee and while they break. Here's what Donald Trump posted. Now, this moments ago. Now, 1 million more pages on Epstein are found. DOJ is being forced to spend all of its time on this Democrat-inspired hoax. When do they say no more and work on election fraud, etc.? The Dems are the ones who worked with Epstein, not the Republicans. Release all of their names, embarrass them, and get back to helping our country. The radical left doesn't want people talking about Trump and Republican success. Only a long ago dead Jeffrey Epstein, just another witch hunt.
And Michael Moore? He's been sounding the alarm about Trump's character and authoritarian tendencies for years. From his 2018 documentary Fahrenheit 11/9 comparing Trump's rise to Hitler's Germany, to his recent Substack posts warning that Trump is creating his own doom through overreach and extremism. If you care about accountability journalism and want to support independent voices willing to expose the truth, hit that like button and subscribe to USA Press. Let's start with what just dropped in the Epstein files, because this is explosive.
I refuse to live in a country where Donald Trump is president, and I'm not leaving. So something's got to change. We have to form an army of citizens and come at him like a swarm of bees, where it's just he's getting hit one way all the way.
Once again, Donald Trump is referring to the Epstein files as a hoax. He's saying that it is a witch hunt. The amount of re-traumatizing of survivors is hard to even put in words what's taking place when Donald Trump continues to make posts like this, and his behavior is like this, and it obviously speaks to a vile cover-up. Also, you have Donald Trump saying, go after the Democrats, embarrass them, shame the Democrats, and shame them.
The Justice Department released nearly 30,000 pages of documents related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein just days ago, and Trump's name appears hundreds of times throughout. Remember when Trump claimed on social media that he was never on Epstein's plane or at his stupid island? Well, the documents reveal something very different. According to a January 2020 email from a federal prosecutor in New York's Southern District, Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously reported.
Except one thing. The one thing that doesn't cost them a cent and is guaranteed to them by the American Constitution, the right to vote. Trump's election is going to be the biggest ever recorded in human history.
I gotta say, I think he kind of gets it. I mean, he's been out there talking to the people and he hears their frustration. And it's for that reason that he thinks this will be a Brexit-type scenario.
This is not a political thing. This is not about shaming Democrats, Republicans, independents. What it is about is exposing this child sex trafficking ring and all of the perpetrators who have been involved. And the Trump regime has been treating the perpetrators, the individuals who are co-conspirators, the individuals who had been hanging out with Epstein as though they are the victims while engaging in this heinous conduct against the victims. As we posted here on the MeidasTouch Network, this move is deeply offensive to Epstein's victims and treats a serious criminal investigation as a political prop.
The prosecutor wrote that flight records showed Trump was listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996. On one of those flights in 1993, Trump and Epstein were the only 2 passengers. On another flight, the 3 passengers listed were Epstein, Trump, and a 20-year-old individual whose name was redacted in the documents. But it gets even more disturbing. A 2020 court document describes an incident where Epstein allegedly took a 14-year-old girl to Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida.
But that didn't matter. He knew how to communicate to the American public. He knew how to tell them what they wanted to hear. He went all over Wisconsin the last week saying, I'm gonna make you all rich. I'm gonna make you all rich. You're gonna make you all rich. Well, geez, who wouldn't like to hear that, right? Right? Ma'am, how do I look tonight? How do I look? What would you say? Amazing. Thank you. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it really made me feel good. And that's how he worked, right? He knew how to do it because he was a TV star. He was already a beloved American TV star. Do you realize in the first year, I'm talking about The Apprentice, by the way, the looks on your face, you know. He was the host of a show called The Apprentice.
Underscoring how Trump continues to mock the justice system while panicking over revelations tied to his own dark past. And Donald Trump was once a Democrat. When Donald Trump was friends with Epstein, Trump was a Democrat. And I don't care what your political party was or your affiliation is, you deserve to be exposed and held accountable for engaging in this conduct and behavior. Now, as you know, it was several days back when the MeidasTouch Network reported on the missing 1 million emails. Here's what I wrote.
According to the filing, when Epstein introduced her to Trump, he elbowed the future president and asked, referring to the teenager, "This is a good one, right?" Trump smiled and nodded in agreement, according to the court document. The unnamed plaintiff herself makes no specific accusation against Trump in the filing, but the interaction speaks volumes about what Trump witnessed and apparently approved of. The files also include correspondence between Epstein and author Michael Wolff from December 2015, where they discussed how Trump should respond if CNN asked about his relationship with Epstein.
Donald Trump came to the Detroit Economic Club and stood there in front of the Ford Motor executives and said, if you close these factories as you're planning to do in Detroit and build them in Mexico, I'm going to put a 35% tariff on those cars when you send them back, and nobody's going to buy them.
And Trump's now got to respond to it, and he's panicking. He's losing it. I wrote, this email from Epstein SDNY, Southern District of New York prosecutors, in 2020 suggests that there are approximately 1.2 million records being imaged in just one hard drive. I wrote there are likely other hard drives as well. I would not be surprised if there are actually tens of millions of records. You see this email Friday, October 30th, 2020. The subject is phone call follow-up. It's from prosecutors to contractors in the Southern District of New York who are likely working on document production and document review.
Wolf advised Epstein, "I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency." In another email, Epstein told someone that Trump was the dog that hasn't barked because Trump had spent hours at my house with a victim whose name was redacted, yet he has never once been mentioned. The Trump administration has responded exactly as you'd expect, with deflection and denial. The Justice Department issued a statement claiming some documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims about Trump, calling them unfounded and false.
News that he's one of the founders of in the Obama era. So he created the fake news of the
Barack Obama is not a citizen, and
he said that there was intelligence.
That's right. He was called by a reputable
source that there was intelligence. Right. He himself was he was hiring investigators to support his fake news. In fact, he is the godfather of this decade's fake news. This is for him now to say.
And it says, "Good afternoon. Following up on our earlier phone conversation, a hard drive with the following production is being sent to SDNY via FedEx with the following production in the US versus Epstein workspace." Then it lists 1 through 7, SDNY production 8 through SDNY production 14, with SDNY production 11 having 6 subparts. 6-part production in SDNY 11. Then the drafter of this email goes, "There are approximately 1.2 million records currently being imaged. The images will be available on Monday, November 2nd, 2020 at the earliest."
But here's the thing. These are official court documents, FBI records, and flight logs, not social media rumors. When confronted with the latest document dump, Trump told reporters that he thinks the Epstein files are a way of trying to deflect from the tremendous success that the Republican Party has. He complained that pictures are being released of people who really had nothing to do with Epstein, but they're in a picture with him because he was at a party. Except these aren't just party photos. These are documented flight records showing Trump traveled with Epstein and sometimes Maxwell multiple times. These are court testimonies describing interactions at Mar-a-Lago.
And I think that they are going to be very surprised. I'm talking about the Trump people and the MAGA nation by what's going to happen on Tuesday. Not only do I feel, to answer your question 10 minutes later, that I feel the same way that I felt a few weeks ago that Trump is toast. Absolutely.
The production of the records will begin as soon as the images are available in the workspace. The workspace is the electronic discovery tools that are being used to review these millions of records. So in fact, it's very easy to access these records. Why? Because they're already uploaded on a workspace. So all it would be doing is accessing the software where these files are uploaded, which SDNY certainly has, and then moving them to whatever document software is being used here to make this production. And of course, the DOJ was aware about it. They had access to this email. They produced this email, so they could have reached out to SDNY.
These are emails where Epstein himself discussed Trump's awareness of his activities. And here's where Michael Moore comes in. Moore has been one of Trump's most persistent critics, and his warnings have proven eerily prescient. Back in 2018, when Moore released his documentary Fahrenheit 11/9 about Trump's election and presidency, he drew direct parallels between Trump's rise and Hitler's ascent in 1930s Germany. Critics at the time called the comparison extreme. Today, with Trump openly discussing using the military against the enemy from within and attempting to arrest those who impeached him, Moore's warnings don't seem so extreme anymore.
Of Trump, if I could put it that way, that he has already started to turn his own people against him. They're not quite there yet, but when they start going to the doctor and there's no Medicaid payment, and they're going to have to pay that doctor for their children and all of that, just go down the whole list of things that it's going to cost them more and more money. It's going to be harder and harder to live, and they're going to understand that he's the one that made this happen. And maybe he's thinking, well, you know, I'm really good at lying, and if you just say it long enough, price of eggs, price of eggs, price of eggs, price of eggs, that they'll go with that. I don't think so. I think the American people...
Didn't Pam Bondi say that all the files were on her desk as of February of 2025? Remember that? And remember when they said there were no co-conspirators, but now we know there were at least 10 co-conspirators who the DOJ were thinking about charging? Democratic ranking member on the House Oversight Committee, Robert Garcia. And again, they're leading the investigation here into the Epstein files. They credited the Midas Touch for making this discovery, which Donald Trump is now freaking out about. Congressmember Garcia wrote, new media organizations like Midas Touch are now critical to holding the administration accountable.
Make sure you're subscribed to USA Press because we're going to continue following these developments that mainstream media often buries. Moore's 2018 documentary didn't just criticize Trump, it examined the entire system that allowed him to rise to power. The film explored the Flint water crisis, gun violence, and what Moore saw as failures by both parties to address working-class concerns. He even criticized Obama for his inadequate response to Flint's crisis, showing that his critique wasn't partisan hackery, but a genuine examination of Democratic failures.
He starts to cause harm to our fellow Americans. People are going to rise up. They're not going to take this. They're not going to take it from a guy that did not get a majority of the votes of the people of this country. So, and his thin skin too could be his undoing. When whoever has the most points wins, right? Tottenham 2, Chelsea 1. Who won that game? I'm just asking you factually. Who won that game?
In that case,
Tottenham won. All right. Now, how odd would it be if you on the news that night said Chelsea won today with one goal and Tottenham got 2?
What are you going to do?
Their reporting is making an impact. Now, Donald Trump's post moments ago about the million Epstein files that are missing or that have now been discovered, which were always there to begin with, that the Trump regime was covering up, also responds to Trump's Christmas message where he goes, "Merry Christmas to all, including the many sleazebags who loved Jeffrey Epstein, gave him bundles of money, went to his island, attended his parties, and thought he was the greatest guy on earth, only to drop him like a dog when things got too hot, falsely claimed they had nothing to do with him, didn't know him, said he was a disgusting person, and then blame, of course, Donald J. Trump, who was actually the only one who did drop Epstein, and long before it became fashionable to do so, when their names get brought out in the ongoing radical left witch hunt, plus low-life Republican Massey, and it is revealed that they are Democrats all.
Moore imagined a post-Trump world beginning when an escalator at the United Nations suddenly stopped while Trump was on it, a symbolic callback to Trump's famous escalator descent to announce his 2016 campaign. Moore wrote about mass protests, general strikes, and 1,000 Mamdanis, referring to congressional candidate Mahmoud running against Trump enablers. He envisioned journalists starting worker-owned media outlets and judges ruling against fascist edicts. Whether Moore's optimism is justified remains to be seen.
We must remove and replace the system and the culture that gave us Trump in the first place. He did not just fall out of the sky and land in Queens. He is the result of a decades-long corporate takeover of our democracy.
There will be a lot more explaining to do, much like there was when made public that Russia hoax was actually a fictitious story and a scam. Oh, got it. So you're saying Russia was a hoax, 2020 election was a hoax, COVID you're saying was a hoax, and this you're saying this is a hoax like that? No, I see what your definition of a hoax is there. Thomas Massey, the Republican Congress member who put forward the discharge petition with Democratic Congressmember Ro Khanna, responded to Trump, "Merry Christmas to you as well, Mr. President." So you're saying that I teamed up with radical left Democrats to expose Democrats? Wow, this 4D chess sure is fun right there.
He calls out Obama for inadequately addressing Flint's water crisis. He questions why Americans tolerate a two-party system that offers choices between funding ethnic cleansing and fascism. His lens is about power structures, not just personalities. The Epstein files force similar questions. Why did the FBI ignore Maria Farmer's 1996 complaint about Epstein's child abuse? Why did Epstein get a sweetheart plea deal in Florida that allowed him to continue his activities?
Donald Trump is very busy doing a whole bunch of other things that we're not paying attention to. Today, Donald Trump's EPA did something that will suffer from years from now. We don't even know right now. His Interior Department sold off land, ours, people shouldn't have it. His Agricultural Department, I mean, just go down all the cabinet departments. Every day there is something going on, and we are very caught up in the large things that he's doing, threatening North Korea, refusing to acknowledge what happened this weekend, what really happened. And I just want to be the one to point out that take this horror moment that we're in and times it by 20, times it by 200. That's what's going on in every federal agency under his control every single day. I'm sorry to be the one to...
And also you have the DOJ now saying, well, the documents we did turn over includes fabricated documents and fake documents. And you can't believe the documents we turned over. They are clear fakes. They go like the Epstein letter to Larry Nassar. They say that's a fake. So you're turning over fake fabricated evidence. You're hiding a million other records. Donald Trump's out there saying that his goal is to shame and embarrass Democrats. I don't think they could handle this worse if they even tried. But you remember what Donald Trump said earlier in the week? He says, they keep asking me about Epstein. I thought this was finished. Here, play this clip.
Like, for instance, today we're building the biggest ships in the world, most powerful ships in the world, and they're asking me questions about Jeffrey Epstein. I thought that was finished. I believe they gave over 100,000 pages of documents.
Why did it take decades to arrest him? Why have so few of the powerful men in his orbit faced consequences? These aren't just questions about Trump. They're questions about how American justice works differently for the wealthy and connected. Trump's response to these questions has been to deflect, deny, and attack. Moore's response has been to document, examine, and demand accountability. The contrast couldn't be clearer. One man has spent his life using wealth and connections to